All right, everybody, welcome back to another interview here on the Insurance Toolkits podcast with a very familiar face. Actually, we were just talking about Ben. I'm pretty sure still has the most viewed video on our entire channel from years and years ago. But Ben is on our sales team, one of our internal sales reps, and he's killing it. So I'll let Ben introduce himself a little more appropriately. Or reintroduce yourself, rather, for those who haven't seen you.
Absolutely. So again, my name is Benjamin Smith. Did my first video about 3 years ago, back doing this. Basically, I'm here to kind of walk agents, especially new agents that are facing their first, annual enrollment period this October. Kind of just walk them through, kind of try to simplify it, take it on like a step-by-step basis, and basically, best case scenario, or give them tools that can, get them more sales, more, money in the bank come January.
Yeah, definitely. I think that for a new agent, especially, so basically this video is going to be kind of geared towards like an AEP prep. And I know that for a lot of agents going into their first AEP, it can seem like this overwhelming. It's, but you have to really like simplify it. And it's like you're just selling a lot more for a lot longer. But outside of that, kind of 5 steps that we had kind of discussed prior to starting for those new agents out there who are kind of getting ready for their first AEP. I'll kind of bullet point here, and then I'll let obviously Ben, give his take on these. So number 1, contracting with preferred carriers. Ben, what's kind of your take on? Do you think agents going into their, I guess, insurance and sales in general, but specifically as it pertains to AEP, do you think that agents should be contracting with 2 to 5 carriers, 5 to 7? Do you think they should have a list, or should they be turning to burn-in? Kind of what's that look like for you?
So for me, just to answer your question and then kind of dive into it a little bit, you should be contracted, certified with as many carriers as possible, just because it not only helps you sell the policy, but overall it will help the client out. Normally I have, and many agents will come across, especially if you sell in just one state, you'll have like a bag of like 3 companies that generally have, the most optimal plans for them that you realize that you use, 80-90% of the time.
Okay.
And especially for new agents, having those 3 core carriers can kind of simplify it. Like, right off the top of your head, plan benefits, certain, dental, vision, copays, drug costs, once you get their drugs, but you're able to be more familiar with it. So with why I said, all carriers is because there's always like those fringe situations to where, a carrier you might write, 1% of the time ends up, you see it and ends up giving them, more benefits than what they were getting before over any other plan.
And kind of a follow-up question to that, is there, for AEP specifically, I mean, it also can benefit you to write, and correct me if I'm wrong, with a few carriers to get, to go for qualification reasons, right? Qualify for different bonuses. You can qualify if you write. I'm just going to put out a fictitious number. If you write 1,000 apps during AEP and they're spread out between 1,000 companies, then each carrier's only gotten 1 app. But if you put those same 1,000 through 2 different companies and each got 500, you're probably going to get much more, from like bonuses and qualifying for trips. Does that kind of hold true during AEP?
Yes, it does. And yeah, that's why I say, like, that's another reason why you should have, 2-3 core carriers, is because you can get those bonuses. But again, there's a lot of agents out there. That's why, having a lot of carriers and getting them, the most optimal plan in terms of benefits will help them stay on the books. Because if an agent comes by later, they can't write them another plan because they can't get them, more, OTC or lower drug cost anymore.
Yeah, definitely. So I think that's definitely the first one is, and not to beat this point too much, but how should new agents that have no idea about any carriers, if these are just random company names to them, how can they kind of identify? Should they rely on their upline? How should they kind of go and pick and choose which carriers are going to be the carriers to contract with?
Definitely rely on upline. Always ask somebody that's been there before. and done AEP and sold, hundreds of plans to tell them, what they should gravitate to. But it differs between states. Like, a certain company in South Carolina, where I'm living right now, could be, give people generally, more benefits than other companies. But if you go to, say Florida or Georgia, that plan could be, subpar in many cases. So it all depends where you are. But yes, number one, above all, talk to somebody that's been there.
Yeah, because sometimes, I think in this current day and age of the internet world and social media, especially for new agents, you can go on a Facebook forum and get 10 pieces of advice that are all polar opposite, that in no way, shape, or form correlate. You're just picking and choosing, which fire am I going to get burned by this time? Second step that I have on here is obviously completing like your certifications, your Medicare certifications, your AHIP, things like that. Essentially being best friends with CMS. What's that process look like? Because I know that there's like a lot of formalities with it, and it can be a little bit kind of overwhelming for new agents. What's kind of the process look like for that, getting ready, from a certification and license perspective?
So it definitely takes a big chunk of time. It's still, this is my third AEP. It's still daunting for me, more annoying than daunting, but yeah, you have to be licensed in the state first off, and then request contracts, fill out a carrier's request form, and then that carrier will send you certification, which is basically like product training. And that's a big way to learn about products. It will tell you everything you need to know in those plans. Read through them, do the tests, and if you're after that, you'll get a ready to sell notification for that carrier. And then after you're ready to sell, if you work in multiple states, make sure that company has all the license sent to them. Email the company or email your IMO, if that's the case, your licenses, so they can apply them. And always before AEP, or it should be weeks before, like middle September, you should be contacting them on the carrier sites, making sure that every state you're selling in, you are certified, and every product that you're selling, you are certified in as well.
So do you think that with that, another, I guess, portion having to rely on someone who's been there and done that, like your upline, there's a lot of deadlines you have to hit. If you miss certain deadlines, you're not going to be able to sell, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of, I think all the carriers, I'm not sure if there's others that, I don't know the exact rule, but September 30th was the deadline to basically have all your certifications done for 2024.
Right. Yeah. So there is, I know if you're coming into it just to sell, obviously you can get licensed and sell whenever, but if you're trying to run AEP and really, I mean, you can stack, especially as a new agent, if you're all committed, you can stack a lot of cash and get a lot of experience during AEP. You can get as much experience during AEP than you could in a year of being out there, in the field selling.
Oh yeah.
Which brings me to my next point, which you kind of touched on, which is, this used to be a little more, I know you've been in sales, a long time like myself, and this is a little more prevalent back then, but like getting your insurance supplies, right? Like your enrollment kits, and like you said, ensuring that you're ready to sell. Anything outside of just your certification and stuff that you think agents should be maybe a little bit more open to having kind of prepared, like whether that be enrollment kits, whether that be, marketing supplies, whether that be like dialer systems. Is there anything that you can kind of think of that would really put an agent in the best optimal position for going into AEP?
Yeah, definitely. Order market supplies. Doesn't matter if you're, selling in the field or selling over the phone. It's a little more important in the field to have those marketing supplies, so you can, present them when you're, meeting with a client.
Right.
Or prospective client. You can, leave those brochures, because it takes, sometimes a week. I've seen up to 2 for people to get their stuff in the mail. And you could have another agent come by the next day, and all of a sudden they forget what, the benefits you signed up for. And they think, oh, like this plan's great, I'll go with this plan. If you leave them with the supplies, they can read down the list, benefit for benefit, what they have.
Yeah.
So and very important.
And it's almost like a little attaboy for yourself too. If you ever run off course and you're, if you get caught up on something, you can just use that as sort of as a distraction and kind of get yourself back on track, which is something that I've had to have done many times, because it can be overwhelming for a new agent, especially when you're, like you said, in the field. If you're face to face, it can be, that physical element of being, right in front of somebody. It can definitely be overwhelming. Now, the fourth step when it comes to AEP prep, which I don't think is a necessity, but I know we talked about it briefly earlier, but it's familiarizing yourself with the carriers that you're appointed with before AEP starts. Otherwise, you're going into something unknown with a team that's unknown. You're just amplifying the chaos, if you will. It can be overwhelming. So you think there's some legitimacy to poking around, figuring around with the carriers, kind of learning like the software, their enrollment stuff? Do you think that's a pretty important part for new agents?
Absolutely. It might be up there with one of the most important parts. Like I said earlier, about having that core 2-3 companies that you work with. You can only learn your core 2 or 3 if you familiarize yourself with the products and the plan benefits. Mm-hmm. So, companies do first looks before AEP. Always, every single plan that you are selling, doesn't matter, HMO, PPO, DSNP, read through them, familiarize yourself with the benefits. It will make it so much smoother during AEP in a home rather than, fumbling through, your computer or, different brochures, marketing materials, trying to find something.
And it can even help just from a purely an efficiency perspective of saving time when you can shave off a pretty significant portion of your meetings if you just know what to do and how to do it and where to go, what to click. Mm-hmm. I've for myself, especially when I was early on, 7-8-ish years ago, not really. This is kind of with a lot of paper apps. Even on the paper apps, it's like, okay, what do I check? What do I fill out? Even that can take time. So just, I guess the overarching point with that point is to familiarize yourself with the tools that you're going to be using. The better that you are, it's one thing to be equipped with tools, but it's another thing to know how to use the tools that you're equipped with. And then the fifth point, which I'm a little biased towards this point, but I think it's arguably probably the most important, which is leads. We won't dive into it too much, but do you think that having a solid trust, it kind of goes without saying, but I guess it's more of a redundant question, but do you think that having a solid trusted lead source is absolutely essential for agents going into AEP?
Absolutely. You need something that, a lead source that has a good record and something that you're, trusting. Because if you get into a situation where you have a bad lead source, mm-hmm. That's less, potential clients or, lower quality of clients to where they might not be looking for a specific benefit, or they were kind of like, just, talking to you to talk to you. A good lead source will narrow down those people. It will get the people that are basically coming to you saying, can you help me with my healthcare? Can you get me, higher benefit in this or that?
Exactly. And that also could help to keep you on track when you're talking with a lead or prospect from a trusted vendor. More often than not, that lead or that prospect knows why you're talking to them, right? It shouldn't be like you're informing them on why you're calling them. It should be, hey, I'm calling you because of this. And that should be much more of a fluid conversation. So those are, in my opinion, like we had discussed prior, those are some of the 5 best ways to get prepped: is contracting with preferred carriers, making sure all your certifications are done. It's October 5th now, so if you haven't done it now, then, I guess there's always next year. Making sure your supplies and everything is all in order, making sure you're ready to sell for each carrier, for each state. Again, like you had mentioned, what you thought to be one of the most important was familiarizing yourself with the carriers that you're going to be using before AEP starts, and of course, having a trusted lead source. Now, to finish off, this will be kind of a question that I think a lot of agents will be able to benefit from. What is your advice for agents that this is their first year license, going to their first AEP, and they're just, they got their blinders on, they got no idea what it is, and this is like, the floodgates are a few days away from opening up?
Yeah, it definitely floodgates. It's the AEP. It's a war zone basically. It's the busiest time of year by far for Medicare. Very, very daunting for new agents coming in, but you gotta realize that every person you're talking to, you're trying to help them into, a situation of more benefits or lower costs than what they had currently. Every person that's taking the time to sit with you knows exactly that. They want to meet with you because they're looking for additional benefits or saving some money here, there, or they need to find, a plan that has all their doctors in the same network. So you're there to help them. You're not, it's a lot different than when I sold life, to where, a lot of times it feels like you're talking to someone and, trying to sell them. Medicare, I wouldn't say is as much selling. It's more helping.
Right. And so would you kind of say going and to every meeting, but especially during this time, going into with that mentality, you're going to just naturally be more, the energy of the conversation is much more shifted when the client can tell that you are just trying to help them. And if you can't helping them, moving on to somebody that you can, right? Not obviously without being rude and not wasting anybody's time. But so yeah, I would agree. And would you kind of agree as well that going into each meeting with the sole purpose of I'm trying to help this person as best I can, and whatever way that I can do that, I'm going to do that. And I think it not only makes the flow of the conversation more natural because you're not trying to sell them, you are just trying to help them, which that conversation is much different, right? So kind of like you were saying, it can help them too a lot, because if they know that you're there to help, they're going to be much more willing to give you, the things that you're asking for, and not waste your time on a 60-minute call and then hang up and that sort of thing. So I guess as an overwhelming point, would you kind of agree that going into any sales meeting with the intention of helping, obviously it's a fiduciary responsibility is important, but is that more important, would you say during AEP? Because like you said, it's a war zone and everybody's phones are going to be ringing for the next, X amount of weeks nonstop. I think it's kind of more of an important point to kind of hammer down on during AEP. Obviously you always want to do that, but what's kind of your opinion on that?
Yeah, I'd say just because of the volume in AEP, you do kind of hammer on down on that more. There's more people requesting for help. I mean, if someone, has a special election throughout the year, you can sell them. But a lot of people, just in, my own conversations with clients, a lot of them think that the only time you can really switch a plan or, get on a plan is annual enrollment period, which, most cases it is. But yes, I would agree to that.
And I guess a better question would be also, because you're working such a higher volume, you're not, you can be talking like, how many people would you say you're going to be talking to a day come October 15th or whatever?
Probably 15, I'd say 15 right. A day.
So we're talking to 15 people a day compared to a lot of people who the unfortunate reality is they're typically talking to 15 people a week if they're lucky. So when you're doing a weekly volume in a day, every day, from early in the morning to late at night, I think that even from an efficiency perspective, just saying, I'm just here to help you. If I can't help you, then you can move on. You save yourself the time. You can speak to more people. And obviously the more numbers that you're getting a hold of, the better. So I think that is a pretty good illustration of what to do what to expect for AEP, and B, how to prepare for it. Anything else that you kind of have that you think is worth noting, or does that kind of wrap it up for you?
One tip. So we went over about plan, being familiar with plan benefits, mm-hmm. And you can basically, familiarize yourself with them to kind of pull them, right in a snap and say, okay, you can get this benefit with this plan. But you should really bracket your time and spend more time going over medications and doctors, because you can be quick with explaining the plan benefits and help them understand that. But a lot of times I've seen with clients, they really appreciate due diligence from an agent that's going through all their doctors, all their medications, making sure, everything's covered. And that really creates a sense of, security for them, is that, he's taking his time, making sure everything's right. And they won't mind if that takes a minute longer.
Mm-hmm. And I think that the value of like this person's genuinely trying to help you, that point really gets pushed across more when people think to themselves like they're doing this purely just to help me. That point is definitely drilled down more. And then one last thing too, I guess as a good tip as well too, product knowledge. What's the you can't sell something and help somebody if you don't even know what you're trying to help them with. Do you think that having a relative level, at least a basic understanding of the products that you're selling, and what you can get from a benefits perspective is probably up there as one of the more important things prior to AEP?
Absolutely, and it's more of a situation like during AEP because everybody's different. I always try to find what I call pain points. You know, what is somebody specifically looking for? Are they looking for like a food card over the counter? Are they looking to lower their drug costs? Always ask them because it's always different.
Right.
Because you present plan benefits, say I can get you, this much more in dental. I can, get you this much more in vision, but they don't wear glasses and say they don't need dental work, then, everything you said is kind of, in their opinion, worthless.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's being a good listener, I guess. I mean, these are general sales tips, but they apply even more so when you're working in this fashion, because if you don't, somebody else is going to, and you're going to get ran through during AEP if you're not doing what you should. So, well,
Yep.
I hope that was beneficial for all of those watching. If you guys have any questions, you got about, I think, 9 days left to ask them, 9 or 10 days left. So, Ben, I definitely appreciate your time today. Hopefully this becomes our second most viewed video after your other first most viewed video. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you in the next one.
All right, appreciate it.